The online dialogue series of Refugee Poets was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.
Hello and welcome to Try My Shoe. You have been with us for 5 episodes now, and if you haven't, karibu sana. Try My Shoe is a series of podcasts that is part of the Refugee Poet 2021 initiative. So we discuss matters refugees. We discuss matters host community engagement. We aim at demystifying who a refugee is. We aim at putting a face to the statistics. And I am excited to be sharing this journey with you because I keep learning. We are here because of an initiative by Anika and GIZ, the Civil Peace Service, mostly the Special Initiative on Displacement. So these are the guys who've powered us. And we have these conversations because we believe that every single person matters. And there's a lot happening in the background in the refugee space. And so today, we look into the civic space, the civic society space, and the refugees. So what is the intersection? What are the laws in place for refugees? What are the opportunities for refugees in place? We look at how the CSO and the refugees have merged and intersected over time, and pretty much what are the baseline of this is what are the opportunities available. And so with me are 2 amazing guests, and I am your host. My name is Joy Chenyunyuzi, and karibu sana. So I will start with Emmanuel. Tafadali, introduce yourself and welcome.
Thank you for having me. My name is Emmanuel Wetnhiak. I'm former youth representative for refugees community at the Great Corner. I'm also a secretary for refugees-led organization Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We are excited to have you. Karibu Ojunni.
Yes, thank you. I like the title given to the session, Just Try My Shoe. Okay, physically, I think no one will fit my shoe here amongst you. But if you go to the refugee part, I think it might be a bit challenging again for someone who have not gone through it. But having said that, my name is Ojulu Ochalla. And since this is a learning process, I would also like to declare and say that I'm an Ethiopian. Though I look so much South Sudanese, I want you guys to know that they are also Ethiopian like myself. So thank you for having us.
I was kind of saving up to the Ethiopian bit so that I just throw it in like a surprise.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I thank you so much for taking the time, both of you. This is something that is teaching me to unlearn so many untruths and be receptive to truths. And so I am passionate about people telling their own stories. And so I would invite you to please share with us how you came into being to Kenya and where you currently are right now. So, for instance, Ojunni, you said you're from Ethiopia. So how did you come to Kenya? What is your journey like? Emmanuel probably can also talk to us about it. So let me start with Ojunni, then I come to you, Emmanuel.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. As I've said, I'm from Ethiopia. If most of us are aware of the fact that some of us may know a bit of African history, that Ethiopia and Liberia are the two countries which are not colonized in Africa. Be it as it is, myself being from Ethiopia, I can say that just as much as it is said so, but there is a bit of internal colonization where people like myself and many others, though they look brown, are looked down by people who perceive themselves to be at the helm of the power. Okay. So what made me to flee the country just was a massacre that happened in 2003. That was on December 13, 2003. A killing that was perpetrated by members of National Defense Force in Ethiopia, which were targeting mainly the men and maybe at least the ones who have gone to school. And that was the reason why I fled. I am from one of the regional states called Gambela. It is the 12th region. Ethiopia has a total of 14 regional states, and the region that I came from is the 12th one. So when I was there after the incidents, I had to use an NGO convoy, which was leaving my hometown to Addis. By then, I used to volunteer for Red Cross. Then I was sneaked into the convoy and made my way to Addis. Then from Addis, my initial destination, according to my parents, because by then I was still under their instruction, and even up to now, because I regard them as an anchor and a navigator who helped me to be who I am today. When I was in Addis, I didn't spend my time just sitting behind maybe the closed door. I decided just to join other university students who have come from different universities in addressing and making the atrocities of the massacre public to the international communities or even to the nation itself. So I joined that team. So my family or my parents initially just wanted me to go to South Africa, and that was not easy. Then they tried Egypt. That was not also easy. Then shortly after that, like maybe in a week or 2 times, an equivalent of maybe Rex card in Kenya, they raided our hotel because we were releasing a lot of information on local newspapers in Addis. So then after that, just my parents, especially my mother, called me and said, just, you have to leave Addis on the next available flight. Then that is how I left and then just came to Kenya. And then ever since, I enjoyed the hospitality of the Kenyans and, in fact, the welcoming nature of the government. Yes, there are a lot of myths that refugees are being like that, the refugees are not being taken good care of. But I am so grateful to the local administration where I live in Ruiru. I'm so grateful to the Deputy County Commissioner, so grateful to the DO, to the Assistant Deputy County Commissioner, and as well to the Senior Chief who really look after the welfare of refugees in Ruiru. And that is what I wish to be spreaded in the other part of Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. You have said something that I will definitely come back to about. So you have mentioned that you worked with Red Cross, and I feel like that is a tag to our topic of conversation today, the intersection of the CSO and refugees and what that looks like. And so we will come back to that in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, really.
Thank you.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, I fled my country because of civil war that exists in that country for some time. So the history is long, and there was a comprehensive peace agreement that was made. So to many South Sudanese, we see that opportunity as if now we'll have a final home where there is peace and also stability. Unfortunately, things did not turn that way. And the place I came from, the conflict that international community is covering is a bit different from what we are feeling inside as people, because there is issue of ethnic or clan feud within the place I am. So originally, the place I reside is not my original home based on tribe or communal African land. So it makes it difficult for me, even though there is peace outside. As South Sudanese, we are going back home. Yes, yet my home is not very safe place to go right now until there are some measures that to ensure the safety of those ethnic minority groups within the society. Yes.
So what are you currently undertaking in Kenya, and what are your encounters with the civil society organizations in that same space?
Okay, I just completed my degree in December 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And also since then, I was undertaking my studies. I was also engaged with community. So in 2018, I was elected as refugees community leader. So the election was conducted by the government, that is us, and also UNHCR. So that is the first time I come to interact with refugees more than myself. From there, I learned a lot, both positively and negatively. And I was also engaged with Kenyan, including basic unit of demonstrations. So when I was serving youth as refugees, that's when the term come to realities. Because traditionally, refugees, they used to be welcome, but things changes. Refugees sometimes can be equated with national security threats. So, and there is a lot of myths around there, and also stereotyping of refugees. For example, someone may look at refugees as someone who is coming to take over my country, my job. To others, refugees may be related to terrorists. And to some people also, they see refugees as people who burn their home, run to someone else, which is more stable. So those terms, we usually struggling with them on day-to-day basis as refugees. And that is not really representation of refugees. Being a refugee, so we can say it is just a status for time being. Yet they share a dream like you. They also have a basic need like anyone. So that is when I come to learn more about refugees. Coming to civil society, currently serving as Secretary General for refugees-led organization in Kenya. Why we came to form that is like just being a Sudanese refugees, South Sudanese refugees, and also other refugees. I realize this one is more limiting. So we come together and have is like a coalition of CBOs in Kenya. So we form this organization to ensure we share ideas among ourselves. So if you are Rwandan and you run a different organization, what do you do? If you are Congolese, for example, and you run an organization, what are you specialized? If you are Kenyan also, what do you do? So from here, that's when we are able to pull our resources together, both technical level and also ideas and improving our community, including response to COVID-19 emergencies assistance. So that is how I get to learn more about civil society. Thank you.
You are doing so much.
Thank you.
Now, tell me, what is your intersection and interaction with the civic space? I mean, Emmanuel is doing phenomenal work, and so are you. So I'm also excited for people to hear what you both are doing.
Actually, this is not our first time to interact. We normally come to meet each other, especially in the same line of duty in serving the community. For me, just the main organization, especially when we came here, the very first entity that we formed was an organization called Untitled Community Association in Kenya. To be used as a collective voice for refugees first in our locality. But as time passed, we felt that there are other communities who are also going through the same. So, for example, now I'm not covering only Ruiru, I also cover Juja, part of Githurai, and if I'm called upon, I'm ready even to intervene, even for a refugee in Kayole, Isli, Kawangware, Kikuyu, or wherever it is. What we are doing is basically for new arrivals to ensure that just they are registered first, because that is what entailed them now. Just that is what it will entail them to access other services. Then after that registration, just we ensure that just they follow the process of interview. For the ones who are supposed to go to the camp, we ensure just they got a movement pass, which will facilitate their travel to the camp. And apart from that, we also engage with different civil society and service providers. The main service provider is UNHCR, of course, but that is the humanitarian part. But we have the government of Kenya, which now the Refugee Affairs Secretariat, which is charged with management and handling of refugees. These are the most important bodies that we are interacting with. But refugees, like any other Kenyans, they have different needs. We have other implementing partners like HIAS, which is mainly serving in the area of livelihoods. We have NCK, which is implementing health. We have Kituo Sheria, which to address the need of legal issues, and RCK, Refugee Consortium of Kenya. We also have HIRC, which is an operational partner to UNHCR on also dealing with issues to do with refugees, and different others, DRC, Xavier Project in education, Windle Trust in tertiary education. So we ensure that just when these organizations have opening, especially for services, we go in and ask them, like, what criteria do you need one of the clients to have for them to access services from you? So this is what we normally do. So we help in identification in the community, and then just have a referral pathway that we can refer them based on their specific needs or based on the problem that they are going through. So as of myself, I think I have touched literally all of the ones I've talked about. Initially, when I came here, I think I volunteered with the Refugee Consortium of Kenya. But before Refugee Consortium of Kenya, I volunteered for JRS, the Jesuit Refugee Services, which now supporting refugees with food and non-food items. By then, they also have medical vouchers. Like if a refugee go to a particular clinic and they need a specialized medical treatment, we give them vouchers so that they can go and access specialized medical treatment. But that is not there then. Then I also served with the Refugee Consortium of Kenya as a refugee right monitor. Then from that with the IRC, then after IRC with GIZ, still as a community volunteer. Then, and shortly before that, I also served with UNHCR as an interpreter for Ethiopian, both the local dialect and Amharic, the national language. And ever since, I think I have gained a lot of experience that I can say, and even just gave me a good working relationship even with these institutions, that I can easily reach out to them and tell them that, look, we have a refugee here who is going through such a problem. Please just come to their rescue, or expect my email on the same. So yeah, that's what we do.
Again, as I said, the two of you are doing amazing work, and you are very essential in that you connect the members of the refugee community and the CSO, and you are like the bridge in between these two. So that is very impressive. So again, thank you for that. Now, assuming I walk through this door and I am a refugee, how do I get to, first of all, know you? How do I get to access these opportunities? Because the two of you have described opportunities. So one, how does a refugee get to know about these opportunities? Number two, how do they plug in? And is there transition such that they do not remain in the same state as they came in? So for instance, if you seek for legal help, you do not remain in the same legal conundrum, but there's movement such that maybe your legal matters are addressed or something of the sort, or even maybe retracing of the steps. So talk to me about this process. How do I identify the opportunities available to me as a refugee? How do I proceed? What are the structures in place to ensure that I receive the help that I need? So just please talk to me about that. I will start with you, Emmanuel. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. First, we really appreciate the government of Kenya for just welcoming and also partners working in those areas. It is not easy to welcome massive group of people whereby a country, most of African countries struggle economically. So we thank you so much, and also thank you to Kenyan, our neighbors who always check out on us, whether we eat something at night or how you feeling. And also our colleague who goes to school with us. It's a much appreciation and also opportunity. We feel protected, even though it's not 100%, but you are granted that tomorrow I may wake up safe and resume my daily work than the previous countries that we live in. In saying so, my approach to question is, I understand, for example, the time you arrive to Kenya, what do you do as refugees? So country has law, and Kenya is a signatory of Convention of 1951, which is talk about the status of refugees. So when someone arrives in Kenya, the first thing you do is surrendering to migration officers. So at that reception center, they will advise you what to do. And if you just sneak in a country using another mean, for example, you just find yourself in Nairobi, and then you find there are legal structures that need you to be in a place of either foreign national or refugees. The first thing you have to do is to report to either UNHCR or RAS within a period of 30 days. So you have to ask, you can start with your neighbor, there are agencies that can help dealing with refugees, or also go to CHIP or a police.
Okay.
You will be advised accordingly. In that process, you will be registered through RAS, that is a government in charge of dealing with refugees. And then your status will be determined within 90 days, whether you qualified as refugees or not. So that is the first step. So as you engage with that process, you will also learn more about UNHCR and working partners. So you will be able to learn what to do as refugees. Should you be in a particular area? So it will be the government again and UNHCR deciding this is where you should stay. And if you stay in urban, for example, and you can even take care of yourself, and the difference of the two, being an urban refugees and camp refugees, is like in camp, UNHCR and working partners also plus government provide you with some services, like getting food ration and also pre-education. But if you are in urban areas, the only thing that government can offer is the legal status, like you have an ID, and the rest you have to, basic need you have to sort it by yourself.
Okay.
And UNHCR may step in with the partners, like he mentioned, majority of them. Like if you need a legal protection, they can also look into. And if you may have emergency cases, there are organizations that can assist you with food item and also clothing. But that does not mean it will last long. It's just short period. And also when you are stable, you can begin to move on. So there are working partners, but the first step, you just show yourself to authorities, then you will be advised accordingly.
Thank you for walking us through that process. I mean, my question was going to be, okay, so how do I access UNHCR? Then you answered by saying go to the police. I mean, go to the chief, just go to an office of administration and identify yourself from there, yeah?
Yeah, let me just miss out that point.
Yeah.
Because when your status, like refugees status distribution is done, you will also learn that there is a hotline for UNHCR. If you need that assistance, you directly call UNHCR and then you will be referred. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for grounding it for us, yeah? Now, you mentioned, Ojulu, within the community where you are at, you have support from the administration and so how do you identify that you have this support? So what I'm doing is I am tying my first question with this one so that we have a further understanding and you can further ground this. So again, the scenario is a refugee has just showed up to Kenya. How do you start? How do you proceed? And within the community that you have, you have, for instance, cited in Ruiru, how do I recognize help? How do I know where to go? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, taking you back to the initial question, how do refugees come to know about these services the very first time they arrive in the country?
Yeah.
I believe, for me, the first time I traveled out of my country was to come to Kenya. So I believe many of us here just have traveled. The same way you are traveling to a different country, what comes to your mind first, just where will I get accommodation? Is that place safe or not? That is also what comes to the minds of refugees. It might not necessarily be when they are starting the journey, but when they are approaching the border or when they are crossing the border, what comes to their mind now, just I have finished this part of my journey. Now I'm in the second phase of it or the third phase of it. Where and who should I talk to? If you take an example of Nairobi setup, refugees are living based on different communities. If you take an example of Kikuyu, there are a lot of South Sudanese. In Kawangware, there are South Sudanese and refugees from Great Lake area. You go to Isli, more of Ethiopian and Somali. You go to Githurai, again, Ethiopian and few Great Lakes. Then you go to Roiro, just Ethiopia of my kind, Roiro. So now that is the same thing that they will follow. Once they are across the border, of course, if they are using buses, whether from Busia, Malaba, or Moyale, or wherever it is, their first stop will be in Isli, where they will actually just come to know or come to meet other communities.
So they would have prior knowledge of...
Yes, yes. Okay. Or even just the conductors who are on the buses or on the truck will advise them, this is the location where you can get fellow refugees. It might not necessarily be from your community. So based on that, now just they will first disperse to different communities. So from within those communities, the first thing, of course, when you are in trouble, just God will come so close to you most of the time. So most of these people they go to the churches where they will now come to know or ask about these services. They may interact with the youth leader, the women leader, or even the pastor. And then the pastor now just will direct them just to the community leaders who will now advise them or where they will access these services. Especially the initial one now just is to avail yourself to the authority. As he has said, who is the authority? It could be the village elder, it could be the assistant chief, it could be the chief. But in most cases, when they arrive, once they come to contact with these community leaders, the next thing they will be advised is now to go to Refugee Affairs Secretariat or DRA by then, or maybe UNHCR, and then register for now so that they are given documents for them. Now, just coming to your question, just how you came...
So they register as
asylum seekers.
As asylum seekers or as refugees?
As asylum seekers. Initially, just you are an asylum seeker. Then from there, just you will be taken through, as what you have said, a refugee status determination. But it comes in two folds. Like now, just if a country is in a generalized instability, like what happened to South Sudan in 2013, 2016, you will be accorded a status called the prima facie. Prima facie just is the face of the problem. So the international community, the neighboring countries, they know a particular country is going through such problem. So they don't have to take you because RSD is such an hectic and expensive procedure. So they give you that mass status as a refugee.
Sorry to stop again. You've mentioned expensive.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my assumption is that it was free, but expensive, who is catering for these expenses?
Expensive in a way, all services acquired from all these organizations serving refugees are for free. Expensive in a way, they have to have lawyers who are specialized in conducting such training. And maybe one RSD status interview might take a minimum of 2 hours or 2 or 3 hours.
Wow, that's long.
So, and then that means that just maybe an RSD officer might conduct 2 or 3 maximum interviews per day. Then you can imagine now, just if there is a bulk of thousands of refugees to take them through such procedures, that's now I'm saying it is expensive in a way that if they have to be covered, then the UNHCR and other international players, they have to invest a lot of money in hiring a lot of RSD officers, which that is what I meant when it's expensive. It's not from the side of refugees. It's not from the side of refugees. So how the other question that you raised, how you came to know about the local administration?
Yes.
If I can give you a brief of how we found ourselves in Ruiru, is that during 1991, during the downfall of the Derg regime, who's led by Mengistu Haile Mariam, is currently in Zimbabwe. Most of the militaries, they fled the country and then just came to Kenya. The very first place they were taken was in a place called Walda. Then from Walda, after some time, they were brought to Thika, where they were hosted on a sport ground. Then from there, they were brought to Ruiru Prisons College, where they were hosted. So while they were in Ruiru Prisons College, some of them started just to rent mabati houses out of the compound. And then from Ruiru again, they were taken to Langata. So most of our people who were in the military by then remained in Ruiru. So it is human nature always that you feel safe where you have your own. So that is why we went to Ruiru. So that is the story behind
the settlement.
But now when we were in Ruiru, just the host community are very welcoming, very receptive. But now in the process, I think International Rescue Committee, in their wisdom, thought that it is not good for refugees just to live like that with a disconnect from the local administration. So they invested in training the village elders, the assistant chief, the chiefs, and several other in conjunction with UNHCR. So that is where we start having that relationship, and then that relationship is built over time. And then along the way, we thought of coming up with another committee called Ruiru Refugees Committee. And that committee it compasses of Ethiopian, South Sudanese, Ugandan, and even Kenyans. And for that matter, actually, just the chair of that committee is the senior chief. So why did we have to form such kind of committee? Is for us, where we don't access in the government institutions, at least we have the leeway that we have Kenyans within our group who can easily penetrate. And in this case, it happened to be the senior chief. And that is why we are having all these things flowing and going on like this. And I'm very grateful to them.
Thank you for that. That is a very interesting thing to highlight. I mean, it's a very interesting situation to highlight. I am learning, as I said earlier, I just keep learning, and I'm so glad you are learning with me as well. So, my next question is in line with the challenges that I would experience now in the same setup. So I have just come, say I have notified the police or the area chief. I have done all these things. So what challenges might I face, and how do we go past these challenges? The two of you mentioned to me earlier that registration of persons closed 3 years back. So now, if I come to Kenya as of now, what happens? Yeah. So what are these challenges that a refugee experiences in their quest to find CSOs and just find grounding within the local communities as well? Yeah. Again,
come back to me or Emmanuel?
Let me start with you first.
Okay.
And then Emmanuel. Yeah.
Actually, just as I've said earlier, that refugees, like any other Kenyans, they have needs.
Yeah.
It could be educational, medical, financial, or whatever it is. But one of the challenges that refugees are going through is that the misperception or the misunderstanding that refugees are funded by the government of Kenya. That most of the time it is misplaced. As you said earlier, that refugees, when they are in the country of asylum, previously there used to be two options of either one staying in the urban or going to the camp. But as it is now, every new arrival is supposed to go to the camp, though the registration was stopped. But again, there is an exemption mechanism where you apply for exemption for you to remain in the urban. whether you are in the camp first or new arrival. The exemption just goes in, there should be a very gross or very grave security concern. If you were to go to the camp, your life could be in danger. If you are pursuing specialized medical attention, maybe you are going through dialysis or what or other thing, just you're really exempted. If you are in college or just tertiary education, because those services, they are not available there in the camp, you will also be accorded that status to remain in the camp. But the challenges now comes with when locals have misconception about refugees being supported financially by the government. That is not true. Yes, of course, there are some minimal and limited assistance. If it has to stay, it goes only for 3 months. And that is especially for single mothers. Not every single mother, just single mother who have gone through a lot. Survivor of gender and victim and sexual violence are the ones who are given, the last time I remember, I think it was early this year, they are given 6,000 per month.
6,000 per month, the whole month?
For the whole month.
Okay.
And that goes only for 3 months.
And they are in the urban setup where they need to pay rent to...
They have to pay rent, they have to buy food, and they have to pay for water, electricity. So now this is now what is out there. And it's basically for the most deserving are the ones who are supported. Education, just like any other Kenyan's children, this civil society organization, including UNHCR and the partners, they advise and encourage refugees to attend public primary schools if they are young, because it is free for anyone. So if they have to support now, maybe they are supporting with at least school uniforms and some basic things. And the support most of the time, like now, if you are supported with the school uniform, the other services, they don't go directly to the students. It goes to the school. Maybe this organization, they may go and raise the fence. They may buy water tank. They may buy some sanitary pad, and it has to go to every student in the school. So that means not just we are sharing these resources. They are not only meant for refugees. So that is how it is done. And the other thing, I think there was a time that someone was saying, I was in a mat together with Kenyans. So I passed by Wayaki Way. Then by then, UNHCR office was along Wayaki, opposite Lions Place. So refugees were queuing up, and they say, just, what are refugees? They are queuing up to be paid money, but not. Those guys, they are there, maybe that is their 3rd or 4th trip for them to look for registration, for them to be registered, to have that legal document that they are legally in the country. They are not there to be given, to be paid, no. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
So those are some of the misconceptions. And again, something that I want to clear is that South Sudanese, they come in 2 folds, I think, or maybe even more. There are some South Sudanese who are well off, children of the ones who are in the government in South Sudan. Okay. Those guys are living a poshy lifestyle. So maybe the locals are confusing these 2 segments, the refugees and the have-nots. So, and then they also paint them with one brush that they are also Sudanese, they have money. So that is, I think, maybe Emmanuel will assist me on that.
It's true.
Yeah, Emmanuel.
So jumping into it, refugees problem are more of socio-economic as well as mental. Why do I say mental? Like recently, refugees are living in captivity of fear. You don't know what will happen next. There was that directive that you have to leave Kenya. Or refugees must be closed within a specific period of time. And some of these people, they live there for more than 27 years. Camp could be a place they call home, or also there's a place of origin. So they really don't know outside there. So having that in mind, it really psychologically disturbing refugees like myself. I don't know when I will be kicked out. Should I go back to the government I first afraid or run away from? So is a question going on with in mind of refugees, and also relying to the agencies or government. You may feel like refugees are not well informed. What is conversation all about? Are they going to stay or will they leave Kenya? So we may see it's a problem mentally we are struggling with as refugees, and we pray if government and also implementing partners like agencies should take care of to ensure refugees are involved in those conversations, to know whether they're going to stay or not. Why am I stating that? Is recently there is a lot of targeting refugees data. Like after that directive, you find refugees are being called. And people they are calling them are not really from UNHCR or implementing agencies or the government. They are pure individual or conman. They will tell you, I want to come and do interview about ABCD, so you are refugee so and so. The question is, where do they get this data that someone is refugees? It has its number. Is something we pray that if government and also telecommunication companies and UNHCR look into. There are so many cases and people are being brought. They will tell you, send this, and also I will come visit you. Yet you don't know whether this person has COVID-19 or something like that. Coming to socio-economic aspect of it, is you are struggling with being accepted. You run away from your community, and hosts may have this place kind of category, like they paint you in a certain picture. And I like what you mentioned, because for South Sudanese, normal Kenyan doesn't differentiate whether a foreign national or a refugee. These well-class people, like I said, or stable families, they almost have everything. Maybe someone was an ambassador or is working with different organizations. They are well established. They have a good home. They have a clean water. They have a good food. So even the car they are driving is also something compared to Kenya. You may say, how is this happening? In my own country, someone is driving a certain expensive. And the problem came in, there was incident of campaign during 2017. They were accusing refugees of being involved in political rallies in Kenya, because the evidence was that someone was driving a car which has South Sudanese car plate number. So they saw it frequently, to the point they reached conclusion that refugees are going to vote. This one wasn't true. It happened because there are those people, they own a car. With a period of time, you find like, I want to sell it. It may be issue of economic or other issues. And those cars, they were initially driven by Kenyan. And so there was that misconception. They were saying, wow, these refugees we allowed in our country are going even also to take political position, or they have what to say in our government. So that is not true. And that's why I was saying refugees are more of socio-economic. What do I mean? Their needs are very specific. They need education like anyone. They also need a work permit, for example. They need documentation. They need protection. They need participation. Any decision that is concerning refugees. Yes. So coming to science in a community setting, you may have different identities. Some will say, if you are pro-authentic, you have a face of pro-authentic, you are likely to be a terrorist. And if you are South Sudanese, maybe, and not all South Sudanese are tall and black. They are brown, like anyone. But if they see this tall one and a black one, they think is more prone to violence. So those are just misconceptions. And pure example, maybe people who engage, they just paint that picture. So there is a lot of challenges. Refugees are struggling to be accepted in area where they are residing, and also have a socio-economic need that they need to access to market, or if I want to sell anything, should I be allowed?
So what is the difference between the socio-economic needs and the integration into the local communities? So why I am asking this is, come 2022, as you both have alluded to, there's the impending camp closure. And with this, there's three options, so to speak. I mean, refugees don't get to say, oh, I want option B, or oh, I want option C, but there are three options. And so for the purposes of this conversation, so I'll just run through them. So the first one is local integration, where refugees can integrate with the local society. The other option is resettlement. So refugees get to be resettled into a different country, into a different host country altogether. And then the third one is not forceful, for lack of
Voluntary
voluntary, thank you. Voluntary repatriation is a third one. So now, one of these three is the integration. So mention what is the difference between integration and socio-economic inclusion. Are these the same things, or we're just using different terms? Yeah.
Can I go first?
Yes, please, Emmanuel.
Thank you for the opportunity. First, it's like when we look into it, is the status of refugees ID. That's where the issue whether integration will be possible or will not be possible. So recently we have seen those countries who was resettling refugees are also overwhelmed by the conflict happening around the world, like for Syria and other countries. So taking all refugees may not be a final solution to the third countries. And that's why the durable solution could be the most preferred one, which you talk about locally integrated or voluntary repatriate to your country. So having a stay in a country and you have an ID, for example, which is issued, first, the ID has a specific period of time that is going to expire.
Which is 5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
And also your ID has 6 digits compared to normal one, which is 8 digits.
8 digits. And what that does, it limits opportunity to say banks and M-Pesa accounts and things like that.
Exactly. You have an ID, you cannot operate for M-Pesa, you cannot buy any property, and it also doesn't allow you to work. So that is where socio-economic issues and local integration interact. And if you were to go on one side and say integration should be possible, the first step could be, let's change the status of ID. If someone wants to work, it may work, but it should not vote, for example. And that is the most worrying part, because Kenyans are worried if we allow these people to have a normal ID, they will vote us out of our country, of which is probably may somehow be correct. But if not about political, can you just limit them from voting, but accept other things like to access to work and also to education and other areas? Because these are, some of them are experts. You have refugees who is doctor, some are lawyers, some are IT expert.
Some are amazing artists.
Exactly. They can boost economic if you allow them to prosper with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes, the camp closure thing is really something which is disturbing refugees. Not only that, even before the camp closure, refugees were looking onto this thing coming, because one of the things is being previously the services that we are getting from the government, because at the end of the day, as you said earlier, refugees are most of the time attached or tied to issues to do with national security. And out of that, 2, 3, 4 years ago, there was a communication from Communication Authority of Kenya that all refugees should be banned from accessing M-Pesa services. Then with that, M-Pesa services, since it is a means of transaction, and it is something that people are already get used to, most refugees, they opted to use their fellow Kenyans or neighbors' identity for them to get money or to receive money of them. Or either just you register with their name, or you all together use their phone. Then with that, it makes refugees to be so much vulnerable, because if the money comes, what guarantee do you have that
it will come to you?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that civil society organizations are trying to advocate, so that they revert and then assist refugees to be using this. But now when coming to the 3 durable solutions, yes, I know refugee things globally is political. I think out of the 3 durable solutions, which is start with voluntary repatriation, followed by local integration and then resettlement. A voluntary repatriation, just you have to be assured that wherever you are being returned to is safe and stable. And then it has to be voluntary. You have to consent to it for you to go, which is very unlikely. If you look at South Sudan at this time, not really. At Ethiopia, as much as it is not very visible on media, there is also conflict there. Look at Somali. So voluntary repatriation might not be a tool that can be used for now. Then looking at the local integration, which we are looking into, or many other people are looking into. It is not easy again. Again, if you are locally integrated, it means that just you are accorded a citizenship and all other things that comes with it. But now, what will happen, or what will be the view of the local community? So it has to be balanced. So for us to move phase by phase, can we coin some words around it and then maybe start from the soft and then just graduating, working to the other one? So yes, as it is now, I think the very reason that I'm talking good of, not only talking good or just receiving good welcoming from the host community, that is an indication of social integration. It is happening, it has happened. Yeah. So from that now, just can we move further, at least to the economic integration? How can you benefit from that economic integration? I have to have all the means for me to benefit. That one now start from banking. Yes, banking, some banks, they allow refugees to open bank accounts with their ID. And but that ID number, it changes or it expires every 5 years. So once it expires after 5 years, then you go back to the Refugee Affairs Secretariat and apply for renewal. When you get a new ID, it comes all together with a different ID number. Then with that, you will not be able to access your account. Yeah. Then now you have to start afresh. You have to go and look for all recommendation letter from RAS, from UNHCR, and ensure that just the bank understand you, or tell the bank, yes, this is the proper document. So up until they change that, it may take 3-5 months before you access your own money from the bank. So these are now some of the things that we are looking, and then the M-Pesa things comes in also. So social integration is happening, but now if we were to talk about economic integration, you have to make the ground favorable for refugees. I know the Kenyan local population would like and would wish well for refugees, but now again, when it goes to the government, is it something that will really come into being? The fact that it is attached to the national security, it is politicized. It is politicized. So what work should be done around this? Because the reason why I'm dwelling so much into the local integration, not the actual local integration, social and economic integration, is because the voluntary repatriation is not viable. The resettlement is taking a very small percent of refugees. So the remaining option now just could be this one. So, but with that, it doesn't have to be forced on the local community or even on the authority, but we have to have common understanding. How can we go about it? Like for you, for example, now just God willing, if you are denied using M-Pesa services, I mean, let's try. If M-Pesa services now goes off for 30 minutes in the entire Kenya,
it is chaotic.
How will Kenyans feel? It will be trending. It will be top on Twitter. So as well, refugees also needs it. If there are elements of criminal elements within refugees, we don't have to be painted with one brush. Just look for those individuals. The government have the resources and have the expertise and have everything to look after those criminals like they do even for all other Kenyans. For the
locals, yeah. Yes. So my final question is still in line with the 2022 camp closure. What does this look like in the CSO space? And with that question, I would like you to please tie in your closing remarks so that we can wrap this up. So please, Emmanuel,
Okay. Actually, there was a time we were in a meeting.
I just feel sorry. I feel the need to clarify. Okay, yes, Ojulu.
There was. We were in a meeting, and that meeting, I think one of the partner organizations raised the issue of refugee election, the leadership.
Okay.
And then from within the same meeting, someone said that I think this is not a priority for refugees now.
Okay.
What refugees are struggling with is that when is the next truck coming and parked next to my door, and I'm put in with my children. So it is all about closure of refugees camp.
Yeah.
Yes, the closure of refugee camp, it might not end there. As much as they are urban refugees, then after the refugee camp is closed, what is next? Then the urban refugees. So they were talking that let's put our priority on the closure and let's advocate and see if there is an alternative way around that. So some organizations, they are probing, like if there are refugees, maybe who have economically established in Kenya, people who have stayed for long in Kenya, and maybe refugees who got married to Kenyans. Is there any way that they can apply for citizenship? So that is the avenue that some of the organizations they are thinking. But as it is, I'm looking at closure of Dadaab or Kakuma refugees camp, not only the problem of refugees, but also the problem of local people living around that area.
Tell me how, please.
The reason why I'm saying that, if you happen to go to Kakuma, you see the Kakuma refugees camp more vibrant and economically vibrant than the Kakuma of the local community. If you go to Dadaab, the same. So by you withdrawing refugees, then you are rendering these towns to be ghost cities. A very good example of Lokichogyo. If someone has been to Lokichogyo before the Comprehensive Peace Agreement of South Sudan, it is very vibrant, very good, and compared to other cities. But now, after the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, all the organization move into South Sudan, Lokichogyo now is a ghost city. So yes, it is not only the concern of refugees, but also I think people who are at the far-fetched places like Turkana and Garissa, I think they are also beneficiary of this camp. So if something can be done, maybe just a survey can be done around that, and then just have a justified measure instead of just saying from a knee-jerk reaction that we have to close it. Yes, it is political, but I think the guys who are in that area will address
it. Would be a good thing. Thank you.
So my closing remark would be, as much as we have all these shortcomings, it is human nature always to aspire for the best. We are enjoying the reception and the hospitality of Kenyan people, especially from the local community all the way to the administration. So we are very grateful. We thank you, and we wish Kenya all the best. And thank you.
Thank you so much. You have pointed out seriously pertinent issues, and I am really looking forward to the social media engagement with our audience, so that we have this interaction going on for longer. So thank you so much. Emmanuel.
Thank you. I can see time is running out.
Yes.
And also commenting on that is more political. And that's why I was saying on behalf of refugees, because I serve as a refugees leader in that docket, and we understand the issues we always undergo. So no information is disclosed either from the government and UNHCR involving refugees. So it's among themselves and high level. The other day we see Commissioner for UNHCR came into Kenya. The discussion was there and we saw in the media. But we were not told is camp going to be closed at this definite time, or you guys are going to stay for a while. So I don't have anything much to comment whether this is the final solution for that. But having given a protection by the Kenyan government and also hospitality we are enjoying, we feel like this country is more democratic, of which you can express and then someone can understand you instead of victimize you on that. So looking into it, recently there is a Kenya Comprehensive Refugees Response Framework that was drafted by the government. And also there is another issues, another project is Garissa Socio-Economic Integration. And also there is Kalbaye Socio-Economic Settlement. All these documents were our initiative project are being done corporately by the Kenyan government, European Union, the US, and other implementing agencies, and also UNHCR itself. This document speak practically how the refugees issues should be addressed. It is not 100%, but there is a hope if we were to integrate them. The issue of being more suspicious to refugees is not possible. It will be eliminated because we see not all refugees are a threat to national security. That is a fact. But there are pure elements. Maybe they may be working from the country of government refugees run into, and they need those refugees who are protected. So they have to make sure they create a situation to ensure everyone may be sent back, and they continue torturing or victimizing theirs often. So we pray if government, it's not right time now because our country are not safe, and looking into issue of the settlement is not everyone going to be in settlement. So the first prayer to them is please allow or involve refugees to have to engage in those forums so that they hear it from the discussion. This is what being said rather than relying to the third party. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have any closing remarks, Emmanuel?
I don't have much. It's just Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you, Ojunni. Thank you so much. This conversation, again, is centered around very many issues that the two of you have helped ground, such that it is not such a foreign idea anymore. It's not just a forethought, but we also realize that the implications of government policy and the government directive come 2022 on refugees, the effect and the impact of that on the local communities, and more so the need to humanize refugees. I mean, let's not treating refugees as people as well, not just. Plus, the refugee status is temporary. So, thank you for being part of this conversation. Thank you for contributing to and helping. I mean, if a refugee somewhere watches this or listens to this podcast, they will be able to know that these are the steps I need to take. The civil society is involved in my well-being in this way. The government of Kenya comes into play in this way. So thank you the both of you for making time to even be here. Thank you. And thank you for coming, my audience. Thank you for being so loyal and always making time to listening to our podcast or watching us. So I would invite you to join us and let's take this conversation further. So let's keep engaging on our social medias, which is at RefuPoet or at Unearthing Initiative across all platforms. So let's take this, let's keep having this conversation. I feel like there's so many questions that I did not even get into asking that you would have for our panelists, and it is important that we have this conversation. So thank you for choosing us. Thank you for subscribing and for sharing and for listening. And again, thank you to our partners, which is JZ Civil Space Service. Thank you very much for providing this and funding us and helping us to bring this to light. This is, I have so much to chew on. Like, there's so much going on in my head about the conversations we are having, and I am looking forward to journeying through this series somewhere with you. So let us probably meet in the next episode, and I invite you to keep listening in, keep contributing via the socials again. And thank you so very much for being here. And remember to create a world where homes are not defined by origins. That is what we aim for here. So thank you and bye.
The online dialogue series of RefuPoet was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF, program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.